In Germany, where a top representative of the nationalist AfD party has launched a scathing attack on Chancellor Merkel. He told a parliamentary session on Thursday that her policies are a failure and that she is part of a push to impose multiculturalism, not just on Germany, but on all of Europe. Peter Oliver has been following developments for us.
Finger pointing and a walkout by the Chancellor. Is this the new normal of German politics? It was a very heated session in the Bundestag on Thursday morning here in Berlin. Angela Merkel was outlining how she sees some of the challenges facing Germany and Europe and what needed to be done on that. But it was really the performance from the political new kids on the block, Alternative for Germany, that, well, certainly drew a lot of the attention. First off, we heard from Alice Weidel, who's one of their co-leaders. She said that the EU no longer represented the German taxpayer, in fact going as far as to call it pure socialism. Well, that resulted in a lot of groans and a few boos from her fellow members of the Bundestag. She also called for a reduction in the EU budget post-Brexit. But then it was the turn of her co-leader, Alexander Gauland, to speak. He hit out directly at Angela Merkel's support for the proposed EU refugee distribution system that would see an overhaul of the Dublin Treaty, that would see mandatory quotas for EU nations, saying that they had to take set amounts of refugees.
Countries want to decide for themselves who they take in. There is no national duty with regard to multiculturalism, and this last remark goes especially to the Greens here.
Well, that prompted this reaction from the Chancellor. Angela Merkel, clearly having enough, decided she was off, not going to stick around to hear Mr. Gauland say that he supported cooperation between EU member states, but not the formation of a United States of Europe. Well, is this the new normal in German politics? Because like them or loathe them, Alternative for Germany have the votes. They're in the parliament. We've actually seen them growing in the polls of late. One can't really presume that every time they say something that Mrs. Merkel doesn't agree with, she's going to decide she has somewhere else better to be.
Well, it has been an eventful day in the German parliament. Shortly after the incident that Peter was describing, their MPs clashed during a debate on banning the veil, proposed by the nationalist AfD party.
Burqa is the oath for the manifestation of Islamic culture. The tolerance of women being veiled would be a fateful sign that our constitutional state is falling back under the cultural colonization of radical Islam. Our fundamental values adhere to people who are free and equal. The full covering is a signal that there isn't a will to participate in our open society.
Dear colleagues, a wolf in sheep's clothing sits in our Bundestag. This proposal isn't motivated by these stated reasons, but rather, as the applicant has already claimed to the press before we had it on our desks, and how it's just been confirmed to be, as a measure against the cultural colonization.
If your proposal is successful, the women who are up until now forced by their families and husbands only to leave the house while fully covered would in the future no longer be able to leave the house at all. Therefore, you're not helping these women. Rather, you're robbing them of the last morsel of freedom and participation in our society.
You don't want to hear these arguments because they come from the wrong faction. You're aware I no longer belong to them, but a need for action in this matter is still as it was before.
Religious freedom belongs to Germany, but the politicized Islam does not. And we are going to turn against this. And everywhere where this politicized Islam attempts to restrict our way of life, the constitutional state will stand opposed to this.